Somewhere off the A1, past midnight, a neon sign flickered above a low brick hut, and inside, the windows ran with steam. This was the transport caff, the lorry driver's refuge in the small hours when the roads emptied and the counter still glowed. We are counting down 25 forgotten dinners that fueled Britain's night drivers. Hot, heavy, and cheap enough to see a man through to Carlisle. From humble fritters to the mighty fry-up, each plate carries a story. Let us begin our countdown with number 25. Number 25. Spam fritters sizzled in the deep fat of every all-night caff, the pink tinned meat dipped in batter and dropped into bubbling oil until it turned gold and crisp. Born of wartime rationing, when American tins flooded British docks, Spam became the driver's midnight standby, cheap at a few pence a slice and filling enough to line a stomach for 200 miles. The cook would carve the block thick, coat each piece in a pale batter, and fry them in the same fat as the chips. Served with a mound of chips and a smear of red sauce, the fritter was crunch on the outside, soft and salty within. Drivers pulling in off the A38 at 2 in the morning ordered them without a second thought, the plate landing on Formica beside a mug of tea. Today, Spam fritters survive as novelty, but once they were the honest fuel of the night road. Number 24. Chips and curry sauce brought a splash of the exotic to the greasy spoon long before the high street had heard of a takeaway. The sauce came from a tin or a great catering tub, thickened with corn flour and dyed a deep ochre, ladled steaming over a pile of chips fried in beef dripping. For under a shilling in the 1960s, a driver could have a plate that warmed him from the inside out, the mild spice cutting through the fat, and the fatigue in equal measure. It was the cheapest hot meal on the board, the thing a man ordered when his wages were thin and the run to Glasgow still lay ahead. The cook kept the pot bubbling all night, topping it up as the hours crawled past. Oral histories recall the comfort of that first forkful in a cold cab park, the sauce clinging to every chip. Simple, cheap, and gone now from all but memory. Number 23. The cheese and onion cob was the caff's answer to a driver who wanted something in his hand and no time to sit. A soft, floury bread roll, split and buttered thick, then packed with crumbled Lancashire cheese and rings of raw onion sharp enough to make the eyes water. In the north it was a cob, in the Midlands a batch, and further south a bap, but the filling never changed. Costing pennies from the counter, it was the food of the man already climbing back into his cab, eaten one-handed as the engine warmed. The onion bit hard, the cheese crumbled down his shirt, and the bread soaked up the grease of the griddle behind the counter. Diaries of long-haul men recall the cob wrapped in grease-proof, tucked on the dashboard for the miles between towns. The sandwich shop chiller killed it, but the cob was once the night driver's steering wheel supper. Number 22. Beans on toast. Held its place on every caff menu as the meal for a man who was skint but starving. 2 slices of thick white bread, fried or toasted on the griddle, drowned under a ladle of Heinz baked beans kept hot in a battered pan since tea time. For 4p in the 1950s, it filled a plate, the beans in their sweet tomato sauce soaking into the bread until it turned soft and orange at the edges. Drivers ordered it at 3 in the morning when the pie case stood empty and the cook was scraping the last of the night together. Some asked for a fried egg on top, some for a shake of pepper, but the heart of it never changed. The clatter of the tin opening, the hiss of the toast, the steam rising in the strip light. It was the plainest supper on the road, and for a tired man on a cold night, it was everything. Number 21. The EGG banjo earned its odd name from the way a driver held it, arm out, chin up, shaking off the yoke that ran down his sleeve, the very shape of a man playing an instrument. a fried egg, soft in the middle, slapped between 2 slices of buttered bread and pressed flat on the griddle until the outside caught. The yolk burst at the first bite, running gold down the wrist, and every man had his own trick for catching it before it hit his overalls. It cost next to nothing. A few pence for an egg and the bread, and it fed a driver fast when the clock was against him. Told and retold in truckers' folklore, the egg banjo was as much ritual as meal, a badge of the all-night road. The chiller sandwich buried it, but ask any old hauler and he will laugh at the memory of yolk on his cuff. Number 20. Fried bread was the Caff's cheapest luxury. Plain white bread laid in the pan where the bacon had just been, soaking up every drop of fat before it crisped to a deep golden brown. It cost the price of a slice and turned nothing into something, the bread drinking in the flavor of the whole pan until it shone with grease. A driver would mop his plate with it, or eat it alone with a shake of salt and a smear of brown sauce, the outside crunching and the inside still soft. Cooks kept it going all night, the pan never truly clean, each slice richer than the last. Oral histories recall the men who ordered it by the round, calling it the best thing on the griddle. Dietitians would shudder now, but for the night driver, fried bread was warmth, thrift, and comfort pressed into a single crisp square. Number 19. Kippers arrived at the counter smoked, split, and sizzling. A whole herring butterflied and grilled until the skin blistered and the oil ran. In the caffs of the East Coast, where the fishing ports were close, they came fresh from the smokehouse, and a driver coming off the docks at dawn could have a pair for a few pence with bread and butter to soak up the juices. The smell hung thick in the steamy air, unmistakable, drifting out the door to the lorry park beyond. Men ate them with their fingers, picking the fine bones clean, washing it down with strong tea. It was a proper meal, oily and rich and warming, the kind that stuck with a man through a long morning haul. Kippers faded as the ports declined and tastes turned squeamish, but there was a time when the transport caff smelled of wood smoke and herring long before the sun came up. Number 18. The Scotch EGG sat under the glass dome on the counter, a boiled egg wrapped in seasoned sausage meat, rolled in breadcrumbs, and fried until the coat turned deep brown and crisp. Cold or warmed on the griddle, it was the food a driver grabbed when he could not stop, dense enough to fill him and sturdy enough to survive a jacket pocket. For 6pence he had protein, fat, and stodge in one round fist of a thing, split open to show the pale egg at its heart. Brown sauce was the only accompaniment it ever needed, dolloped straight from the sticky bottle on the table. Oral histories from the road recall the Scotch egg eaten one-handed at the wheel, crumbs down the seat, the last bite saved for the lay-by. The calf counter always had a fresh batch by nightfall. Now they are a picnic curiosity, but they once rode shotgun on every long haul in Britain. Number 17. Corned beef hash turned a single blue-labeled tin into a plate that could silence any hunger. The cook diced the dense pink meat with cold boiled potatoes and onion, then pressed the lot flat in a hot pan until the underside caught and crusted brown. Shipped in their thousands from Argentina, the tins cost pennies, and the hash they made was the backbone of the calf menu when fresh meat ran short. A driver would break the crust with his fork, the salty tang of the corned beef mixing with the soft potato beneath, often crowned with a fried egg and a splash of Worcester sauce. It sizzled loud on the griddle, the smell filling the little room. Diaries of the road recall the hash eaten at 4 in the morning, hot and heavy and cheap, exactly what a cold man needed. It vanished as fresh meat grew common, but the tin once fed the whole night shift. Number 16. Saveloy and chips glowed under the calf's strip lights. The bright red sausage kept warm in its own juices beside the fryer. Wrapped or plated with a heap of chips and doused in vinegar, the Saveloy was the reward at the end of a long run, the dense, peppery meat snapping under the tooth. For under 2 shillings, a driver had a supper as vivid as the sausage itself, the crimson skin unmistakable through the steamed-up glass of the counter. Cooks kept a row of them warming through the night, ready for the men who pulled in hungry and short on time. Saveloy and chips survives in a handful of chippies, but the Caff version, eaten in the small hours with a lorry idling outside, has all but disappeared. Number 15. The bacon butty was, for many a driver, the finest thing on the whole board. 2 rashers of back bacon fried until the fat crisped, laid between thick slices of white bread spread with real butter, the grease from the pan soaking into the crumb. The great debate raged along every counter in Britain. Red sauce or brown, and no 2 men agreed. For a shilling in the 1950s, a driver had a sandwich that could carry him through the darkest stretch of the A1, the salt of the bacon and the softness of the bread, a comfort beyond its cost. The smell of frying bacon at midnight was the Caff's advertisement, pulling weary men in off the road like a lighthouse. Oral histories are thick with reverence for the perfect butty, the bacon just so, the bread still warm. It endures on cafe menus today, but the midnight bacon butty in a lorry park was something close to sacred. Number 14. Black pudding hit the griddle in thick, dark slices, the blood sausage studded with white cubes of fat, frying until the edges crisped and curled. In the Caffs of Lancashire and Yorkshire, it was a point of local pride, sourced from the town butcher and cooked alongside the bacon and egg. A driver coming south from the mills could order a couple of slices for a few pence, the rich, earthy, iron flavor unlike anything else on the plate. It sizzled and spat, the smell mingling with the fry-up on every griddle in the north. Some men ate it plain, some smothered it in brown sauce, but all treated it with respect. Diaries recall the black pudding as the taste of home for the northern hauler far from his own town. Today it enjoys a fashionable revival, but the everyday slice, fried at midnight for a tired driver, once anchored the Caffs of the industrial north. Number 13. Bubble and Squeak gave the Caff a way to sell yesterday's vegetables at a fresh profit, and gave the driver a plate of pure comfort. Cold mashed potato and leftover cabbage, sometimes a stray carrot or a scrap of meat, all pressed into a pan and fried until the underside turned crisp and brown. The name came from the sound, the sizzle and hiss as it hit the fat, and the smell of frying cabbage told every man on the road what was cooking. For pennies it filled a plate, the soft potato inced and the crunch at the edges, often topped with a fried egg or a rasher of bacon. Cooks made it from whatever the day had left behind, wasting nothing. Oral histories recall the bubble as the meal a driver ordered when the pie was gone and the money was low. Cheap, hot, and honest, it turned scraps into supper for the night shift. Number 12. Rissoles were the Caff's clever trick for stretching a little mince a long way, and they filled many a driver's plate when the beef ran thin. Minced meat, mixed with breadcrumbs soaked in milk, onion, and a good shake of seasoning, shaped into flat cakes, coated in more crumbs, and fried until brown and firm. The soaked bread kept them moist and made a pound of mince feed the whole night's trade. Served with chips and a smother of gravy, or with mash and peas, the rissole was cheap, filling, and endlessly forgiving of whatever the cook had to hand. Diaries of the road recall them as the reliable standby, always there, never dear, the sort of meal that asked no questions. The cook could make a tray of them from Tuesday's leftovers and sell them all by dawn. Rissoles slipped away as convenience foods rose, but they once fed the hungry miles between depots. Number 11. Faggots and peas carried the taste of the black country to Caffs all across the Midlands, a dish that made virtue of the cheapest cuts. The faggots were balls of minced pig's liver and heart, bound with breadcrumbs and sage, wrapped in caul fat and baked until dark and glistening. Served in 2s or 3s with a scoop of mushy peas and a flood of thick onion gravy, they cost mere pence and filled a driver to the brim. The smell was rich and savoury, herbal and deep, drifting from the kitchen to the counter. A man off the road wanted stodge and warmth, and the faggot gave him both, the gravy soaking into everything on the plate. Oral histories recall the caffs where the faggots were made in-house, each cook guarding his own blend of seasoning. Faggots and peas hang on in a few Midlands shops, but the midnight plate, steaming under the strip light, has largely gone. Number 10. Liver and onions divided the caff counter as sharply as any dish in Britain, loved and loathed in equal measure. Slices of lamb or pig liver fried fast in a hot pan, smothered in soft caramelized onions, and served with mash and a pool of thick gravy. Cheap as anything at the butcher's, liver was the affordable answer to a driver's hunger, rich in iron, and just the thing to see a man through a night behind the wheel. The trick was speed. For a minute too long, and the liver turned tough and bitter, and every good caff cook knew it by instinct. The strong metallic smell filled the little room, drawing some men in and sending others straight back to their cabs. Diaries recall the weekly liver supper, the sizzle of the onions, the argument over who got the crispest. Liver and onions faded from the road as tastes softened, a nostalgic curiosity now where once it was ordinary. Number 9. Oxtail soup came ladled thick from a great pot kept simmering at the back of the caff, dark and rich and glossy with the gelatine of the bones. The cook browned the bony tails, simmered them for hours with onion and carrot, and by nightfall the broth had turned deep and satisfying, cheap to make and cheaper to sell. For a few pence a driver had a bowl that warmed him to the core, served with a hunk of bread to soak up every drop. On a cold night, with frost on the windscreen and hours still to drive, that first spoonful was a small miracle. The pot was rarely emptied, only topped up and set back to bubble. Oral histories recall the soup so thick a spoon would stand in it, the ballast a man needed before a long, dark haul. Oxtail returned as a restaurant delicacy, but the caff bowl, steaming at midnight, has quietly vanished. Number 8. Cottage pie crowned the caff's list of proper sit-down suppers, a dish that felt like home to a man far from his own table. Minced beef simmered with onion and gravy, spooned into a dish and capped with mashed potato, then baked until the top turned golden and the edges bubbled brown. It cost little to make, the mince stretched with vegetables and the potato piled high, but it ate like a feast after hours on the road. The cook made a great tray of it in the evening and sold slabs through the night, each portion a solid, steaming rectangle of comfort. Drivers recall it as the meal they ordered when they had time to sit, to rest their legs, to warm their hands round a mug while the pie cooled. The smell of it baking filled the caff at tea time. Cottage pie survives at home, but the caff version, cut thick for a night driver, belongs now to memory. Number 7. Toad in the Hole turned a handful of sausages into a meal that fed the whole night's trade. Fat bangers dropped into a tin of Yorkshire pudding batter and baked until the batter rose crisp and golden around them, puffing up over the edges of the tin. Cheap and cheerful, it stretched a few sausages a long way, the flour and eggs filling bellies when meat was dear. Served in a great wedge with onion gravy poured thick over the top, it was the sort of supper that made a tired man smile. The batter crackled at the edges and stayed soft in the middle where it met the sausage, and every driver had his favorite corner. Oral histories recall the caffs where the toad came out of the oven at a set hour, the men timing their arrival to catch it fresh. It has faded from everyday kitchens, but the sizzle of that batter once drew drivers in off the dark road. Number 6. Steak and kidney pie stood as the monarch of the Caff counter, glistening under the glass in its short crust case, the pastry golden and the gravy bubbling through the vents. Chunks of beef and kidney in a dark, rich sauce, baked until the crust turned crisp and the filling ran thick. It was the meal a driver ordered when he wanted the best on the board. For a shilling and a bit, he had pastry, meat, and gravy in one hot parcel, served with chips and peas or eaten straight from the paper. The smell of it drew men to the counter, the pie, the crown of the whole display. Diaries of the road recall the pie supper as the highlight of a long run, the reward for miles endured. Frozen pies and service station versions hollowed it out over the years, but the proper Caff pie, hot and heavy at midnight, was something a driver remembered. Number 5. Gammon. Egg and chips was the Caff's idea of a proper feed, the plate a man treated himself to when the wages were good and the hunger deep. A thick slice of gammon, fried until the fat caught and crisped, crowned with a fried egg or a ring of tinned pineapple, and heaped alongside a mountain of chips. It cost more than most on the board, perhaps 2 or 3 shillings, but it ate like a celebration after a hard week on the road. The salt of the gammon, the softness of the egg, the sweet cut of the pineapple, all of it came together on one crowded plate. Cooks kept the gammon warming for the men who came in flush and famished. Oral histories recall it as the driver's Sunday best, the meal ordered to mark the end of a long haul. Gammon and pineapple hangs on in the memory, but the Caff plate, piled high at midnight, has slipped away. Number 4. The mixed grill was the Caff's grand statement, the plate for a man who had earned it and could barely see over the pile. A sausage, a rasher of bacon, a lamb chop, a slice of liver, a kidney, a fried egg, a grilled tomato, and a heap of chips, all crowded onto one groaning plate. It was the most expensive thing on the board, kept for the driver who had money in his pocket and a hunger that a lesser meal could not touch. The cook fired every burner and pan at once, the griddle crowded, the smell of it filling the whole Caff. Diaries of the road speak of the mixed grill with something like awe, the meal that beat any restaurant for sheer weight and value. A man ate it slow, savoring every corner. Rising costs and shrinking appetites saw it off, but the Caff mixed grill was once the king of the night road. Number 3. Bread pudding sat squat and dark on the Caff counter, cut into heavy squares, the driver's reward for clearing his plate. Stale bread soaked in milk, mixed with dried fruit, sugar, and spice. Then baked until dense and set, sticky on top and studded with currants throughout. It cost the Caff almost nothing, made from the bread that would otherwise have gone to waste, and it sold for pennies a slab. A driver ate it warm with a skin of custard or cold from the counter, the weight of it settling like ballast before a long, dark stretch. The smell of nutmeg and warm fruit cut through the fry-up steam, promising something sweet at the end of the meal. Oral histories recall the men who came in just for a square of it with their tea. Dense, sweet, and cheap, bread pudding was the Caff's quiet triumph. Thrift turned into comfort for the road. Number 2. The mug of tea was the beating heart of every transport Caff, the first thing a driver ordered and the last thing he finished. Not a cup, but a great, thick mug. The tea brewed strong and stewed dark, milky and sweet, with 2 sugars stirred in without asking. It cost a few pennies, and it was the reason half the men came in at all. The warmth of it round cold hands, the finest comfort the road could offer. The urn hissed and steamed behind the counter all night long, the cook pulling mug after mug through the small hours. Builder's tea, they called it, strong enough to stand a spoon in, and a driver drank it by the pint. Oral histories are unanimous. It was the tea that kept Britain's night hauliers awake and moving. The food came and went, but the mug of tea was the caff itself, poured hot at every hour until dawn. Number 1. And finally, in first place, the full English fry-up crowned the transport caff as the ultimate meal of the British road. Bacon, sausage, fried egg, black pudding, baked beans, fried bread, a grilled tomato, and often a slice of fried potato, all crowding a single plate under the strip light. It could be had at any hour, for the caff kept no clock, and a driver ordered it at midnight or 4 in the morning without a flicker from the cook. For a shilling or two he had everything on the griddle, the whole pan piled high, enough to fuel 300 miles of dark road. The smell of it, bacon and eggs and beans, was the caff's true signature, drifting out to the Lorry park to pull the weary in. Oral histories place the fry-up above all else, the meal a driver dreamed of through the long, empty stretches. Formica table, red sauce bottle, mug of tea steaming beside the plate. Nothing in Britain ever fed the night quite like it. From the humble spam fritter to the mighty fry-up, these 25 dinners fed the men who kept Britain moving through the dark. They were cheap, heavy, and honest, born of thrift and served without ceremony on Formica tables under flickering signs. The transport caff is nearly gone now, driven off the road by service stations and shrink-wrapped convenience. But for the drivers who lived it, that steamy little hut at midnight was more than a meal. It was warmth, company, and a moment of comfort before the long road home. Tell me in the comments which of these you remember, because these plates were the taste of the open road, and once you have known it, you never quite forget.